And Peggy, some of you may know Peggy. She joined the University of Guelph in 2007, and she is currently the Learning and Curriculum Support Librarian for the University of Guelph. And she focuses primarily on she's the instructor librarian for all undergraduate science programs except OAC. So that that's unfortunate, including CPES and CBS. Prior to joining Guelph in 2007, she was at the University of Queens in the Faculty of Health Sciences. And it's there where her interactions with graduate students, right, primarily female graduate students, inspired the idea for the book. And the book is entitled Success Strategies for Women in STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So she is both a co-author and editor of this book, and it is now in its second iteration, is that right? Mm-hmm, and yes. Peggy's going to talk to us about science and technology and social media. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to speak with you today, both in person and virtually. I think it's a wonderful example of how we can connect across many platforms. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today about social media, particularly as it relates to advancing our careers and advancing science. Now, I really would like to start by acknowledging the incredible contributors to the Mentoring Manual for Women in Science, which was inspired first by graduate students at Queen's, and more recently, my graduate students here, and the conversations I've had with early career scientists across the globe in the 10 years that the first edition of the book has been out. Unfortunately, there is still a need for support for women in STEM careers, and Elsevier was very interested in a second edition. So it's this updated edition that includes new chapters, including a chapter on social media. And the two authors of that chapter are Emily Darling, who is the David H. Smith Conservation Research Fellow, Biology Department at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And the second author across the globe is Jodie Rummer, who is the Australian Research Council Super Science Fellow at the Center for Excellence, and it's an amazing, yes. She's at the Center for Excellence for Coral Reef Studies, James Cook University, and it's their content that I'm presenting today, and her slides, much of the content and how she's presented it in terms of images and such, I credit to her. So I would like to make that announcement right away, an acknowledgement. Jodie and Emily are very interested in open access, in providing information, sharing information freely, with the understanding that intellectual property is attributed properly. And that's certainly an aspect of open access that many of you will probably be talking about now and in the future, because it's really moving quite along. I won't address open access today, except to say that it's going to appear on one of the slides in a few moments. So thank you, Emily and Jodie in particular. So what is social media? Yes, exactly. In fact, I heard of Facebook. Essentially, I would like a little bit of feedback from you. So only because I would like to get some sense of your involvement right now. So when we say social media, what do you think of as social media? Twitter, yes. Okay. YouTube. Blogging. Instagram. Snapchat, wonderful. So we're talking already about online tools and ways in which we engage with each other through the internet. Yes, and certainly there are many more, but definitely, just sort of generally speaking, not a strict academic definition, social media are web-based resources and platforms that you mentioned that expedite conversations and allow people to generate content, share content, interact content globally. And this can be a real strength for science, a real boon for science, versus the traditional media which tended to be one-way delivery, except in conferences where there was a sage on the stage and a little bit of interaction. Social media really opens things up, and especially with science being funded by government agencies, it's very important that that knowledge be shared broadly rather than locked down behind publishers' paywalls, even though the book I'm publishing is with Elsevier. They're working on ways in which to open it up. But certainly very important. So this is what I'm thinking of in terms of social media. So here's an opportunity for me to get some feedback from you. What is your level of online activity? I've a couple of questions for you. Are your research publications, your presentations, your seminars, etc., open access? So hands up if some or most of your scholarly activity is open access. Okay. Yes, we've got some people.
Just have a clarification.
Yes, please.
So do you mean, is that us making it available? Or for example, when we publish, eventually, I don't care what the timeline is, the journal makes it openly available. So are you specifically asking us if we're making it available? Or are you asking, is our stuff eventually made available?
Excellent question. Thank you. Identify this gentleman right here as having a very good understanding of what open access is. Yes? Yeah. So, already? Because there's a lot of experience and knowledge in the room already. And one of the neat things about social media is that we can engage with people and develop communities of practice. But that can happen in person and has often happened in person already. So to answer your question, certainly there is a move among the publishers, the paywalled publishers, to and the requirement for any research that has been published and paid for by granting agencies and such to be available free of charge, but there will be a delay. At the same time, we can also make things available ourselves. So my question here really relates to the two things. Are you aware of the fact that your research publications are available, open access, after a certain period of time? Or do you intentionally make things available through SlideShare or through an institutional repository? Does that clarify? Thank you. So that's the question with clarification. Are your research publications or your scholarly output, I'm thinking of seminars at a conference and such, available either immediately because you do it yourself, or in a delayed way because the publishers make it available after a sort of time period? How many now are open access? Yeah. And there may be some people who are not quite sure. I invite you to take a look at the open access movement. We also have information and a team actually in the library if you have more questions about open access and how you can become more involved in that. Yes?
It's a quick question. I read through an email very quickly, but I think I saw that it's going to be a requirement for us if we have tri-council funding. That
Yes.
We will have to publish either open access or at least in a journal that will make it openly accessible.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Yes, that is true. Yes, absolutely. And the journals themselves are moving towards providing that information up front in terms of identifying to what extent their publications will be available and what the delay time would be. So yes, thank you.
Do
One
you know
more
if it's
question.
also happening in the United States with NIH funding?
I believe that is the case as well,
Because there's
although
still
I'm
a lot
not.
of public journals that I have no access to.
Yes,
It's really frustrating.
absolutely,
Even
which is
10 years later. like,
very,
it's been published.
yes, very, very frustrating. Absolutely. There is that movement, and I think Canada is ahead of the game in that way. So, excellent. Next question. Are you active on the following? So just a show of hands, just to get a sense of your experience. Oh, gee, goodness. There we go. Are you active on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, ResearchGate, academia.edu, or a research group website? Hands up if you fit within any of those categories. Most people.
Active versus occasionally look at.
No, I mean active. Okay. Okay, and guess what? There are many more. Google Scholar Profile. personal web page, yes, personal blog, online comments at other blogs and sites, SlideShare, YouTube, creating your own YouTube videos. Ah, yes, you are. Excellent. How many people are aware of the institutional repository here at the University of Guelph? Couple of people. University of Guelph Library hosts what we call an institutional repository. This is a space for all undergraduate students, graduate students, faculty members, staff in the University of Guelph community to share their scholarly output. So each department can have their own space, each individual can have their own space. And all theses that are published must be submitted to the institutional repository. So that's another way in which scholarly information can be shared and through that disseminated. Excellent. So thank you. It looks like everyone is involved in some way, some to a greater or lesser extent. Now, have any of you used these platforms, those of you who are active, have you used them to promote your research or talk about your research? So to connect with people or promote your research?
Equine Guelph did a really good series on YouTube on equine researchers. Is excellent.
Brilliant.
But it's not personal.
Yes, but you're, yeah, fantastic, absolutely. So that you can see already that there are more people, because this is not, I'm getting more feedback here than I have in other sessions. So I'm seeing a greater movement towards this. Thank you. Now, in the past, as you know, people learned about what we were, who we were, and what we were doing, especially in the scholarly context, through, I love this, the telephone. Now we use Skype. Tumblr is more a personal kind of platform. Address book instead of Facebook, Twitter, etc. So I really found this very amusing, particularly. I actually am an outdoor person, and I really like being outdoors. And I know some people, when they are interested in the weather locally, they'll go to their iPad and say, oh, it looks like -2. Instead of looking out the window, I'll just go to the door and say, oh, this is wonderful. So that was then. But again, just the point is, we're moving towards a much more online interactive world. And these, again, are some of the platforms that people are engaging in, and you have too. So if we're already online, what is important about having a positive presence? Because many people are using Facebook for personal use, and we've seen lots in the media about young people in particular who are posting images that can be problematic for themselves in terms of, or others are posting images about them through other things other than Facebook that are problematic and can be problematic. One of the challenges, of course, with the internet is that it has a long memory. It's difficult to erase a lot of the digital footprint. So my question is, can we just come up with some ideas about why it would be important to have a positive presence? Just a little bit of brainstorming right now. Yes.
I think if you're a young person, employers could probably, I think the term is creep.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. Or definitely, employers are.
Well aware of the fact that this is
Yes, yeah. So potential place for employers to find out about us. Yes.
I was going to say it's very widely distributed.
And
Like the information that goes online goes far.
yes, absolutely. So far reach. So the positive presence would mean then that you would like to represent yourself in a positive light, and what information you may share you'd like to make sure is accurate and such, especially in the professional context. Any other ideas?
Well, because people go to Google immediately and they get it within seconds. If they type an email instead.
Absolutely, they can Google you. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Yes, please.
People who provide professional services to the public, more and more the public look them up on the internet somehow before they decide whether to go to them as a veterinarian or a physician or a dentist.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Any other thoughts? Oh, yes, thank you.
Hearing sort of ideas you sort of become a representative of whatever security, because people will also see what you do.
Yes.
This is what you are.
So you become a representative of your particular discipline or profession and organization or institution by extension. Excellent. Yes. Yes.
Online bullying, if you don't have a positive presence, people from all over the world literally jump on you and
Absolutely. And in some ways discredit you or could potentially discredit you. And I think this is particularly important because in a society where policymakers are often influenced by public opinion, we really would like to make sure that in science policy in particular, people have a positive impression and positive and respect for scientists who are contributing to the conversation. And I think certainly all scientists who are interested in engaging in those kinds of conversations need to be aware of that, to make sure that their the information they present in any arguments that they might engage in through blogs and Facebook, Twitter, etc., do bring in the evidence and continually bring in the evidence. And that's one part that's very important to me, this notion of knowledge translation and science literacy, and the importance of scientists to understand their role in helping the non-specialist public to understand science. A couple of things here. Yes, definitely, he nailed it on the head. We will be Googled by potential employers, and this is at the undergraduate, graduate level and beyond. Altmetrics are becoming more important. How many people have heard the word altmetrics and know what altmetrics are? Yes, that gentleman in the back. What are altmetrics? Pardon? No, sorry, he's, okay. Altmetrics, alternative metrics. We've heard of impact factor. So in the academic world, we understand impact factor, we understand the importance of publishing in high impact journals. Altmetrics are really becoming a very important complement to understanding our impact. So on the right here we see this published in Nature. So Nature is actually acknowledging the fact that there are the traditional metrics. So this article recently published in Nature scored 95 in the Web of Science citation metric as well. This is cross-reference and Scopus, but it also included the online attention that this particular article has received. And it's not saying so much, it's not valuing what that attention really means in terms of impact, but recognizing that this particular article is getting a lot of attention online. And therefore, this particular article may have considerable influence. So it rated 99 in terms of the altmetric score devised by Nature. And some of the things that are included are number of tweets, tweeted by 58, on 4 Facebook pages, mentioned in 2 Google Plus posts, picked up by 2 news outlets, etc. So it's important for us to understand that our scholarly output is having an impact, is not only in the sort of traditional ways that we think of impact, but is also being viewed, the information is being shared, talked about through social media. So it's very important that we have a positive online presence, because there may be a trend towards altmetric data being applied to our proof of impact or evidence of impact for promotion and tenure. Jan, I saw your head shaking. Pardon?
You're saying this is so scary. We can generate numbers, are they needed?
Exactly. What do they say? There's lies, damn lies, and then statistics. But certainly this is a fact. I'm not saying good or bad, but we need to be aware of this increasing trend towards examining the online attention of our output, not just in terms of our publications, but blogs and such. It's important to have a positive impact because it can contribute to the dissemination of information, which I mentioned before, potential collaboration, and even crowdsourced funding. So I mentioned the two authors of the chapter on social media. Emily has received some crowdsourced funding for her research and because of her involvement in social media. The other interesting thing about Emily, who is a fish specialist, is that she's doing research in Africa and she doesn't have the funding to go to Africa all the time to collect data. She's made some very, very strong positive relationships with some of the fishermen in some of the small communities, coastal communities, and fortunately they do have access to the internet. So they are collecting data for her. And what they do is bring their catch in, then line up the fish on the beach. They take a pack of cigarettes, put it down, take a photograph, and send her the photograph. So there are very interesting ways in which the internet is being used for science, sort of citizen science, which is very interesting and exciting. So essentially, just to demonstrate this in a graphic, really, Facebook, these are Facebook connections, a map of those connections across the globe, but we're becoming increasingly mobile as well. So this will only increase that interconnectedness. So really, in summary, in terms of the importance of understanding and appreciating the power of online connections, it's accelerating the pace of research, expanding the reach beyond the journal article. So cutting edge research in your field to track it, job, grant, award, news opportunities, building, maintaining networks of collaborations, boost your visibility as a leader in your field much more effectively than traditional ways through conference presentations and such. Locate new career opportunities, increase impact of your research, and develop communication skills for those of us who still need to learn how to write quickly or tweet shortly. So the stats, very, very quickly, as I said. So I've made some claims, but here are some stats. 2014, 2.5 billion internet users, that represents about a third of the world's population. 1.8 billion people linked to social media. Twitter, 230 billion accounts. Every day, 500 million tweets sent. That's about 5,700 tweets per second. Facebook, 1 billion accounts daily, 665 million people check Facebook. I'm not saying whether this is good or bad and whether they really should be in the lab working more, but these are some of the realities, and particularly for early career scientists, this is the environment in which they're working and growing up. LinkedIn, 259 million accounts, 2 new people sign up every second. This is our reality. Oh, sorry. So, how can we strategically use social media to advance our careers and advance science? Because it can be very overwhelming, and I certainly find it overwhelming. All the possibilities, platforms, where do you begin? 3 steps. Develop a digital brand, if you will. Choose your preferred platforms and stop doing this and go for it. So I'll just take each in turn. What do I mean by brand? That's a very sort of corporate word, but essentially it's a professional online identity. And it's something that you need to plan, you need to reflect upon, because it is you who will be engaging in conversations, you'll be sharing information, you will be making some decisions for yourself about how and to what extent you will be involved actively in social media. And it draws on core values, knowledge, and skills. And these will inform the decisions you make about the platform and the extent to which you will be involved, what you will contribute in terms of posts or tweets, whether you decide you'd like to develop your own blog, your own website, etc. So really, what questions can we come up with right now that you can ask yourself, first as a researcher, because I'm thinking in terms of the scholarly context, and then what questions can you ask about yourself in general and as a person that will inform how you use social media to communicate about your work? As you think about that, I'd like to show you one example. Now, this is Emily Darling's homepage, and this is actually her own website that she has created. And you see, she has images of the some of the people with whom she has worked. She works in marine conservation, so she actually has a personal statement there. And she has 3 aspects about her research and news. This is one way in which she has chosen to present herself through her own website. And as you look at this, you think, whoa, this is a little bit overwhelming. How could I possibly do that, create that? To me, when I see it, it's very colorful, and I just even trying to make some design decisions can be challenging. But certainly Emily has been using a web page template, so there are lots of tools that are available to you if this is something you choose to do. So essentially, I'd like to pause right now and invite you to reflect on 3 questions that will help you to make some decisions for yourself about what your online presence might be. These questions, the answers to these questions will in fact inform your decisions. Why do you do your research? To whom is your work important? And what is your goal in using social media? Those 3 simple questions can help you to move forward in terms of the following step, which is choosing a platform. So I'll take a few minutes right now for those of you who are interested in pausing and jotting down some ideas. So let's see. Now, there are some people who would be comfortable just sharing some of their answers about any of the 3 questions. I saw some people writing. So why do you do your research? It's fun. Excellent, yes. Okay. Yes.
I guess I'd say to treat, cure, prevent viral diseases.
Okay, to treat, cure, prevent viral diseases. So that's something, the enjoyment aspect and the treating, curing, preventing viral diseases, for example, could inform how you might present some of the information, some of the words you choose, some of the key terms in any kind of short profile. Any other thoughts, any suggestions for this? Yes? Wonderful. Impact public health policy and public health prevention. So I could imagine with those words somewhere in your online presence, whether it's a LinkedIn account or whether it's a Facebook page, a professional Facebook page, or your own website, anyone looking for information about that who Google you would probably use some of those words. And it's very helpful, here's the librarian on me, a hat putting on right now. It's very helpful to, as you think about the terms that you use in your online presence and your sort of identity, your online identity, be aware of the natural language that people use when they are searching Google. So thank you. To whom is your work important? Besides the scholars who are going to, sorry. We've got somebody in the peanut gallery back there who's making me laugh. To whom is your, he's my husband, by the way, so. To whom is your work important? Yes. So obviously then, to your colleagues. Yes, sorry, but did I? Oh, okay. Itching, whoop, yes. Yes.
To potential grad students.
Fabulous potential grad students. So faculty members who are researchers who are interested in attracting excellent talent would like to be able to convey that aspect of their research in order to attract new talent. Yes? Absolutely, yes. And you can tell that this is one of sort of a key value of mine, the general public, so that we can be involved in knowledge translation, what the Catalyst department here at the university would call knowledge translation. But I think it's important for us to be involved in those conversations. Yeah. What about your goal in using social media, for those of you who wanted to jot some ideas down? So. Crowdfunding, yes, absolutely. That would be fantastic. Yes, I think I saw.
I actually have, I just want to follow up that point.
Please.
Do you know how the university, this might be out of your area, do you know how the university views money generated through funding? Will they do that as a, under what category would that fall in there? Are they going to take 20%?
Exactly.
Do we get it all?
Excellent, excellent question. The question was, for those who may not have heard it, how does the University of Guelph treat crowdfunding? Is it the same as grants from the granting agencies? Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. Are you? Pardon me?
I do know.
They would want an OR5 filled out.
Fill out an OR5 and we'll take a lot of the money. But certainly, thank you for the question, and I will see if I can find out the answer to that and share. Yes. I don't know if we have a policy. Yes, thank you. Yes. I'll follow up and I'll send what I find out to. You have another question?
I think sometimes we do a bad job as scientists of informing the public of what we do. And I think this is also important because never want to lobby for more money from the government for CIHR or NSERC or whatever.
Yes.
They're not going to listen, politicians won't listen to us because it's in our self-interest. But if you can get the average Joe voter behind you and behind your student choice, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know the way of doing that other than maybe social. It's hard.
Yes. Well, I agree with you. I think social media is a powerful tool that we can use to that end. Leverage, as some people use, the verb they use. I'm not sure I like it. But anyway, I mean, we get the sense of what the potential is. I would really welcome conversations at a later time about how we could do that and be involved more. But certainly the greater the presence, especially if we have people who are sort of personalities, I think that the non-specialist public are attracted to them. So if there are ways in which we can develop our online presence, using these questions as inspiration, but keeping in mind ways in which we have to appear as though we're accessible, engaging, that things are enjoyable, fun. I think that is another way in which we can share information and actually get the facts out as we understand them. I think there was a question here or another point.
There is a website called Kickstarter. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Brilliant. Yes.
Yeah, so Kickstarter, basically you pitch a particular idea and then people jump on that idea and then they give you funding essentially for your idea.
Yeah.
And if you meet your goal. And so you
Yes.
can divide it into several stages. And I guess my question is going to be like, is that even allowed to be used by scientists, or has any scientist used Kickstarter? It's fairly new. It's fairly new.
Mhm.
It's fairly new.
Yes. Does anyone know the answer to that question? Yes, please.
The Georgia Aquarium uses it to fund its research program. So it's high value, sexy, whale shark sort of stuff. So
Yes.
they actually quite a bit of fun. There's a lot of people who use it already.
Fantastic. Yes.
It needs to be, well, success needs to be sexy topics.
Yeah.
So some topics do very well, some topics won't do very well.
Just the one issue there is there's no peer review that I'm not doing that. But you
Yes.
could be like, I'm going to hear cancer in a week and fund my research. I
Absolutely.
there's no peer review.
But
Yes.
But if people
getting money doesn't often have peer review. Getting money, I think, can be derived from anywhere. It's the science is without peer review. So
Yes.
I think,
So let's make sure we
well, we
get the
just
money.
need to consider the opportunities better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I've just made a note here, one moment please. I've just made a note here about Kickstarter and the question about how the University of Guelph treats how much money they take from the crowdsourced funding. And I'll share the information. Sarah, shall I share it with you? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. There was a question?
Yeah, I think a lot of scientists, one of their goals with social media is furthering their own research, but beyond the communication piece, in the actual execution of their research. So asking questions about methods to their peers,
Yes.
using things like
Yep.
ResearchGate to get informed feedback. Things like that.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Yes. So it isn't just knowledge translation, but it's collaboration. And I can imagine even sharing information more quickly and more nimbly. Yeah. And developing communities of practice through online fora such as Twitter. Because, I mean, there's a hashtag Women in STEM handle, for example, and other kinds of handles that if we find the ones that really relate to our specific area of research, we can immediately connect with people online. It's excellent. Thank you. A couple of other things. So this is brilliant. I just get a sense that there might be a real interest in having maybe a monthly conversation or a bi-monthly or some kind of brown bag lunch where we can continue these conversations about it. But I'll get those information to you. So this is Jodi's goal for using social media, just to give you some ideas of her answers. And then notice education, to inform, to learn, that is her own learning so that she can advance her work. Mentorship is very important to Jodi, and service is very important. And this is her homepage and how she's presented it. And she's able to identify some new activities and such that are important to her. Through this TEDx talk, she's really been very successful in disseminating information to a non-specialist audience about her research. So again, it's very personal in the sense that this really does represent Jodi, not just professionally, but the personal aspects that sort of resonate with her. Those are her own photographs. So it is something that appeals to early career scientists in particular who have a little bit more, perhaps have grown up taking photos and posting them, that sort of thing. I really would like to encourage people to use that and focus it on a professional use, a strategic use in terms of advancing their own careers and really attracting other people to the really fun aspects of science and discovery. So this is how Jodi brought it together in terms of her Facebook page. So here are some of the keywords, and in terms of discoverability through the internet, it's very important that those words or tags are common language that others would probably, non-specialists would probably use when searching. And just an example of Emily's Facebook page. Again, there's a lot of flexibility with respect to changing photographs and such, which can make it fun because it can say, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. Which brings us to the next point. How do you bring it together for yourself? In terms, not in terms of the choice yet of the platform, we're still talking about the brand or your online identity. Certainly the aspects include photograph, online name, It may be a given name, surname, again, your choice. So here are some examples here. Key information, keywords I mentioned already, don't need to repeat that, and other links. I can make these slides available too for people if they're interested. This isn't comprehensive, by the way, but just to get you thinking in terms of the kinds of elements that you'll bring together in your online identity. Next step. So first step was really to spend some time thinking about the purpose, the reason why you're interested in social media, some of the aspects of your research, who you are hoping to communicate to and with, and that really informs the next stage, which is choosing your platform. Some elements to consider when saying, okay, what are the implications of becoming involved in, say, Twitter, setting up a Facebook account, LinkedIn, ResearchGate, etc. We do have to be very practical. We have limited time. Certainly, if we're intending to reach a particular audience, that may influence our choice of platform, content that we may wish to include. There are some platforms that are more amenable than others to video content, for example. Do we want a strictly personal presence through Facebook, for example, and a professional one through our own website, through LinkedIn, ResearchGate, or other platforms? Do we want to merge it a little bit? Some people prefer to keep personal and professional quite separate. Jody, for example, does not. She has both a Facebook account and a Twitter account, and she is the same person on both, although with Facebook she does allow herself a few more fun poses standing on her head, you saw, I think, in a yoga pose. Another point here is that platforms can be relatively static versus dynamic. So I'll give you some examples here. ResearchGate, Weebly, Google, LinkedIn, academia.edu, and WordPress tend to present a fairly static presence, and so there isn't quite as much interactivity, although we're seeing already in LinkedIn a lot more interactivity, sort of Facebook type interactivity than we have when it first was mounted. More dynamic platforms include Twitter and Facebook, as well as YouTube, Instagram, Blogger, Reddit, and there are many more. But in terms of the data relating to activity, numbers of people involved, and growing in terms of not only activity, but people engaged in the various platforms, there are top three. The big three are LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you're interested in trying to make some decisions without having to research every single one of these platforms, you may wish to consider one or more of these three platforms. So a couple of ideas, a little bit of information rather about the three platforms. Twitter gives you an opportunity to communicate small messages. The networks are very, very powerful. Fastest growing platform in social media, 1 in 40 scholars in 2012, short messages, as you know, and short lifespan in terms of the following the messages. Personalized news feeds are possible. Global Faculty Lounge is available through Twitter, which is also really neat. Another thing, Facebook. How many, I don't know that there is anyone here who isn't familiar with Facebook, and it has initially been a personal space for people, very visual and interactive. It is the largest by far in terms of number of people, but we're seeing a decline in use, and Twitter seems to be really growing. Groups and organizations have pages as well as individuals, as we know, and certainly research labs and journals themselves have Facebook pages, as well as public, rather private groups. It's very intuitive, so in some ways an easy place to begin if you're interested in this platform for your own social media account and to sort of get your feet wet. And it's multi-directional in the sense that it's quite interactive. So it's one of these dynamic social media platforms where we have things like posts can be liked or commented on, friends and such. So it's a very interesting language. We need a whole lexicon, I think, for Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and etc. rather. So these are some of the positive aspects of Facebook. Some of the less than positive aspects. Friends can be friends. What does that mean? Can be superficial. It may feel less professional and may be more difficult to really present yourself as the scholar and authority that you are. Privacy and security problems. One of the things I don't like about some of these online platforms is that the default setting is open, open, open. So you have to spend quite a bit of time deciding, okay, what are the implications of this kind of openness? It's very frustrating for me to make a change just be thinking, oh, I want to change that to this, and it's broadcast to everybody. I'm not interested in you knowing that I uploaded something or changed. So again, we need to be aware of those kinds of security aspects and privacy. Better for personal use, certainly. And too much information could be a liability. LinkedIn, this is the professional network, and it isn't just for academe. So ResearchGate is more a platform for people within academe, but LinkedIn is beyond that, even though many academics have LinkedIn accounts. This is something that's a little bit more static. Largest professional network site. And as you can see, I don't know, I assume that most people have experience either with their own LinkedIn account or have viewed other people's LinkedIn accounts. There's a lot of professional information that you can add to it, resume, CV, etc. Collaborations and discussion groups are available, and there is lots of visibility. And certainly when I walked through the University Center just a couple of weeks ago during the recruitment fair, every one of the recruiters said that they use LinkedIn in their recruitment. All of them searched LinkedIn. They all searched Facebook as well when they were sort of researching some of the applicants. But when they were looking for applicants, LinkedIn was one of the platforms that either they themselves or the headhunters they hired used to identify potential employees, even if they wanted to steal somebody away who's involved in work and contributing to another organization. So an important platform as well. So really, we need to develop a brand, our understanding of why we really want to use social media, what kinds of information we want to convey, and our intended audience. We need to make some choices about the platform and then begin. So here are some ideas. Again, just in terms of, we can't decide, each of us needs to decide this for ourselves. We need to choose the content to post. So what are we going to post? And when and how frequently. Do post something. Even beginning very, very briefly can make you get your feet wet a little bit. Sometimes, for example, in Twitter, people have set up an account and then follow certain conversations. For example, Women in STEM is a conversation I like to follow without actually posting anything immediately. So one can, with something like Twitter, lurk a little bit, but don't lurk too long. Try and post something. Right, okay, sorry. And then post your own content. So once you develop more confidence about the environment that you've chosen within the platform, then begin to post some content. You can add a link or photo, in Twitter you can retweet, etc. And then begin to build your own network. You may have lots of colleagues who are more active than you are in social media. You can ask them their advice in terms of choice of platform, but also how they got started and the kinds of things that would be helpful for you to be following and then to contribute to. Oh, sorry. A couple more points. It is important to maintain our presence. So
it's like this engine that you have to constantly feed it, right?
Absolutely. So we have to sort of, yes, absolutely.
Most of us, I think, don't want any more
It's too much. Yes, absolutely, I agree. And so that is why, if we choose even to become involved, we need to say, okay, this is precisely why. These are the kinds of things I will follow and respond to. And these are, and really develop that armor. I'm not going to be responding to this. I will not allow myself to feel compelled. So that's, but as, you know, as scientists, I think we can all say, wait a minute, I'm logical, rational about this, and I will be immune to those pressures. But certainly, we need to, from the larger context, we need to understand what are our core responsibilities within our institution, what are the key priorities for our own advancement and development, and will becoming involved, for example, with an early career scientist in academia, will be involved in social media, say Twitter, for example. Will that actually enhance their work or be a time and energy sink? These are questions we need to ask for ourselves. Don't forget Netiquette. So there are some, not rules, but as professionals, there are certain ways in which we can contribute to conversations that are more helpful and really contribute to that positive online presence. Aim to consistently post. Now, Emily and Jody suggest once or twice every day to build an online following. That's too ambitious for me, but certainly polite, nice, thoughtful, friendly, engaging. Initially, there are some people whose lives, who are journalists, as social science journalists. They're on a lot more frequently, and they've developed a reputation of following, and so they can be a little bit more risque. But certainly for people who are interested in beginning this sort of factual, polite, friendly, engaging tone can minimize the possibility of the kind of backlash and bullying that you mentioned earlier, etc. There are further frontiers in social media, which for those of you who are really leading edge, you may wish to explore. But I would like to say one final word, and that is, though social media is a really powerful tool for advancing our careers, for advancing science, it is just a complement to those in-person interactions. In person, within our own institutions, at conferences and seminars, our visits that in person is very, very important for us to maintain. Any questions at this point? That clock is 5 minutes fast, so we have 5 minutes. And yes, yeah. Thank you so much for all the questions that we had during the presentation. I wanted to leave a couple of minutes left for questions. And there's a whole reference list at the end here, the book rather, but lots of references. I won't show you now, don't need to, because I'll be providing you with the present. Yeah, absolutely. But any questions?
I think I'd like to ask John Lumsden whether we should replace our newsletter with Facebook.
Oh!
I'm not sure, but I'd like to have the 6 faculty in the room actually have web pages within spaces.
Yes! Oh, no!
I think, well, I just, the question of format's a good one. I think faculty can be comfortable with a web page, which is relatively static, presents what they want to present, and then control the interaction that stems from it, whereas I think Facebook or Twitter, it takes more time, and I'm not actually sure the benefits are much better than a web page. So, but everyone has to make their own mind up. So I do think we need a much better presence than what we have. Whether that's the pathologist now becomes a Facebook page, I'm not sure. But I guess who's the audience?
Mm-hmm.
So.
The problem with web pages is that you always have to maintain them because they're always dated and kind of tend to. That's
why we have Natalie, and that's why we have a resource, and we got the department's willing to pay for it. So there really isn't a reason why we shouldn't have that presence.
Wow,
It may have been in the past, but I don't think there's that.
Yeah, certainly if you have those resources, that's excellent, because absolutely, Jan, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, could you comment on the signal to noise ratio? Sometimes
Oh. excellent question, Jen. The question was, can I comment on the signal to noise ratio? I don't have any data on that, but in my experience, it can be very, very frustrating to tease apart all that noise. That's one of the reasons why.
What that is.
I beg your pardon. The question has to do with how much
Useful information
Yes.
versus junk.
useful information versus junk. I think in some ways, Jan, one of the ways I address that has to do with the platform that I choose and the some of the, in Twitter, the hashtags that I'm following. I also rely very heavily on Jody and Emily because they help tease apart things.
Like you're getting links that, like, who are these people? I want nothing to do with them.
Yes.
Please,
Yes.
reappearing.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. I would love to find some data on the that ratio. That would be very telling.
I actually use Twitter. I'm not going to tell you what my account is. It's not, you wouldn't find it by searching for me. But that's on purpose, actually. Don't try, but I don't think you'll find me. But it's a great way to actually find information. And they often have direct links to the scientific source. And so without me having to spend time searching, I can actually follow posts that post material. So for example, I use it to collect material for my disease of coated animals course.
No,
as I
there's
did
there's some good stuff, but there's also some.
But you have to, you can choose to say nothing and interact with nobody. So
Well,
it's, your level is up to you.
But yeah, there's tweets you get that you don't want. And you're not interacting with them, all you're doing is relating them.
Yes.
But I mean, there's lots of tools to really interact.
So I guess.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And there are
So maybe that's the answer to that question, part, because there's lots of things in mailing.
yes,
The different mailing is not great, and there's lots of.
filters and such. Yes.
So I
Yeah.
like to filter all those stuff,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
even still, like.
Yeah. And certainly there are some productivity tools for social media, which I sort of, that may be workshop number 2 or something like that. But yes. I'm just looking at the time. Yes, please.
So, okay, you
Thank
mentioned that this is now our world. Is it going to progress, expand, or is it just a fad in 10 years, we're never going to hear these again?
John, what is your opinion? It's not going to, I don't believe it's going to be a fad. I think that our,
ResearchGate's going to be an interesting one to watch because they have their own rating factors you talked about, and so how much that is future granting and promotion, maybe granting actually more than anything else, but there will be, I think, a lot of more pressure and more use, and so I think people need to learn to use this to their advantage rather than to their merit, to be honest.
absolutely. I don't see it going away. And I've had some very interesting conversations, for example, with graduate students who are from Africa, and they are really embracing this as a way of trying to share information with their colleagues back in Africa, and particularly scientists in smaller institutions who don't have access to, don't have the money to pay for the kinds of journals and such that we do. We have the fortune of being able to afford here at the University of Guelph, well, in North America. And there's some interesting stories, but I want to be respectful of people's time. So.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I think we'll end here, and please join me in thanking Peggy for a very informative talk. Is this the first time you've given a talk like this?
This particular one, yes.
Yes. Were you happy with the level of improvement?
Yes, I was, because, people, what I find is that,
Maybe we'll turn that off just because, yeah, we don't have video.
hello.
Broadcast.